Hey guys, Shane with Dazzy Integrations again, back for another edition of Give It To Me Straight. And today we're going to jump into the topic of the Hillary Clinton email scandal. I've had several people come to me over the last week or so and just ask, how serious is this and is it as big a deal as everyone's making it out to be? And really, to answer that, we need to first step back and understand why you would want to host your own email server and look at the lessons you can learn from a small business perspective. So about once a week or so, we run into a small business that's running a legacy type email account that's called a POP3 or a POP3 email account. The term there is not really relevant for this discussion, but it comes from the old dial-up internet service days where you would get your dial-up internet service along with an email account with it. And those accounts were pretty basic, slimmed down, didn't have a whole lot of features, just allowed you to send and receive email. You could tell if you were using one of these accounts if you couldn't have your email show up on multiple devices. Once you downloaded it to one device, it was on that device unless you forwarded it. And that's one of the driving factors that a lot of small businesses were looking at is they wanted to be able to have the ability to have email synchronized across multiple devices. And so they look to applications like Microsoft Exchange. And when they start looking at that, they look at the ability and the requirements to host that internally or with a provider. And a lot of businesses opt to do that internally. That's exactly the scenario that Hillary Clinton utilized for her email server, except that she housed that at her house. Now, there are two primary security concerns that have been raised in regards to her deployment of that. The first of those involves the SSL certificate, or Secure Socket Layer certificate. Basically, what that is it's a certificate that is issued from a top-level authority that says, we verify and can vouch the fact that this server is who it's supposed to be and it's from who it's supposed to be. In normal testing and deployment, you can use what's called a self-signed certificate. What that means is that we're just going to vouch for ourselves that, yes, this is our server and we know that it's us. If you're using that in a private network, that's probably not that big of a deal. It comes into play when you put it on a public network or the internet. And that's what happened with the email server that Ms. Clinton used. It was a self-signed certificate. There was no top-level domain authority that verified that it was who it was. And the danger and risk there is that, let's say you're in a public Wi-Fi area and you try to go to that email server. There is a potential that someone could set up a fake email server that impersonates your server, and so when you go to www.myemailserver.com, they direct you to their fake server, and they prompt you for your username and password. You go ahead and log in like normal, you put in your username and your password, except now that person has maliciously obtained your username and password to your real account. That's actually a very easy way to get access to accounts and to hack email accounts. So it's actually very prevalent, not something that you want to take lightly. So if you're going to host your own email account, especially using some type of service like Microsoft Exchange, you want to make absolutely certain that you use a public and top-level verified SSL certificate. The other security issue that comes into play is in regards to the overall physical security approach to the email server. So to get access to email, your server has to have ports open within the firewall that allow access into it from the internet. It uses commonly known ports, just like, let's say, when you dial 911, no matter where you are in the United States, when you dial 911, that is a universally well-known number that directs you to a 911 dispatch center. The same thing applies with an email server. They use commonly known ports. Everybody on the internet knows what those port numbers are and know that if you're going to get access to an email server, those are the ports you go to. So to secure those, there's really a couple of different approaches that are used. One, you put a firewall in front of it and you say we only allow access to those ports and for these purposes. And additionally, behind that, you would put that email server in what's called a DMZ. What that allows you to do is segment your email server from your internal network. And most of the time, you'll have a firewall in front of the email server and a firewall behind the email server. The first one protects access from the internet. The second one actually protects access into your internal network. So in both of those scenarios, you really need to make sure that someone is continuously monitoring the security on those. Because typically what happens is you have a commonly known port that's open to the internet, which everyone knows now that there's an email server located at this IP address and there's going to be a port open. So there's my vulnerability to try to get in and hack that server. So you use a firewall that monitors that, and hopefully you're using something that's related to an IPS or IDS solution. That's intrusion prevention and intrusion detection systems. And basically it proactively monitors whether people are trying to attack those connections and monitors where they're from and can take action against them. It requires someone continuously monitoring this. So if you're going to deploy your own internal email server for your business, make sure that you have a decent firewall in front of it, and more importantly, that you have someone monitoring the security logs on that, and that you have an IPS and IDS solution in place that does some automation of those. Those were the items that were missing in this scenario with Mrs. Clinton, and those are the items that are of the highest security concern. So there are valid security concerns around those that are worse from risk, and probably some open access to those servers. Make sure that if you're going to do it for your business, that you take those steps to secure those, and make sure that you're monitoring on an ongoing basis. The last piece of that is, even though you may have a firewall in place, it is extremely important that you continually update the firmware and software on that firewall, because there are security risks that are identified on each and every day built into those devices. So that software may have a bug in it that allows security risk to be exploited, and you want to make sure that you're continually updating the software to patch those issues. If you have any questions about this or just want to talk more about how you approach an internal email server, certainly let us know. We'd be happy to jump into those discussions with you. But thank you for tuning in for another edition of Give It To Me Straight.